Hello there and welcome back. This video from Shaw Woodheat is going to focus on the Start 6 model from BEF Home. This is the smallest stove in a range of some half-dozen models ranging in different sizes, but the story of this particular stove, how it's built and how it's put together and how it works, is no different than the rest of the range, but just on a slightly smaller scale. There are three parts to this video that we're going to focus on. The first obviously will be the stove itself, how it works and the type of heat that you can get off it. Second part of the story is we're going to focus a little bit on the convection jacket, and this is a jacket which will sit over the machine and afford you a little bit more control over the warm air that the stove produces. And the third part will be the fan system itself. We've it propped up here just to give you an idea of what it looks like and how it works, but we'll talk a little bit about the fan and the convection jacket in a moment. A little bit on the stove itself. This machine is rated at about 8 kilowatts nominal output, so plenty of heat for an average sized sitting room or even slightly larger. The construction of this stove is to be a little bit different than other insert stoves that are on the market. Namely, it's a combination of maybe 2 or 3 different types of materials, namely a steel, which is applicable to the front of the stove here, the frame and the carry frame, and the rest of the unit consisting of the convection housing for the baffle, the side, the back and the other side are all made from cast. So you've got good quality heating properties that get hot and stay hot for a prolonged period of time, so that the yield or the output from the stove is going to be slightly increased. You do need to give some consideration to this at the design or the install stage. These stoves, or this particular type of stove, requires a reasonably wide berth, plenty of air movement around it, but it will give back 10 times more than you ever give it. If you give it a small amount of air, it'll be able to get that air very hot very quickly and then return it directly back to the room, or be passed on to different parts of your house via a ducting system that we'll talk about in a minute. A little bit on the stove itself. I mentioned before 8 kilowatts nominal output. The front dimensions of the stove are approximately 600 by about 420, so a nice size picture. The front of the stove, as you'd expect with all BEF Home product, has a smoked reveal around the sides to give a very nice, clean and polished look. The door handle, very smooth, very easy, a good quality door handle, and also ropes inside as well. And the chamber, very simple and very straightforward. Some nice designs on the back wall there, but a very simple and well put together chamber. And you have your ash pan and your primary air being delivered from underneath the stove there. This is the primary air controller, obviously very exposed here with the door in the open position, but when the door is closed, obviously a little bit less exposed, but still easy enough to operate, a very solid and smooth action. This particular type of control is linked directly to the back of the stove, which I'll show you briefly. This unit, along with all the units in the BEF Home range, has a capability of taking its combustion air from outside your house or outside the dwelling in which the stove is installed, and this particular opening here can be connected to the outside world, and your combustion air is controlled via the lever at the front of the stove itself. These spikes or these screws that you see here on either side are connections for the legs. The stove is sold complete with its own set of 4 legs, which are adjustable. So we have it sitting here on a pallet, but a nice height for the stove is maybe around 450 mil from the ground, so it looks well when you're sitting down. So that's the combustion air inlet. It can be connected to the outside world. For those of you who are going with a warm air recovery system or looking for a slightly higher BER rating with your home, the outside air is definitely an option that you need to consider. There are 2 other parts to this story which are applicable to this stove and other parts of the BEF Home range. They namely are a convection jacket, which is a galvanized steel jacket which fits over the stove, which will afford you a little bit more control over the direction of the warm air that the stove produces. And the third leg to the stool, so to speak, is the fan. A little bit more about this in a few minutes, but this is the fan system that BEF Home sell to accompany their stoves. This is one of the smaller fans. There's one slightly larger, but the operating setup for both of them are pretty much identical. The stove itself is a very unique design in how it's put together. You've seen around the back already, but just to show you a little bit more detail, cast iron to the top and cast iron to the sides and the wraparound. So the unit is capable of producing an awful lot of warm air and from a convection process. So this stove can be installed as is, but we would always recommend where possible that a convection jacket is used. And to that end, we have one made up all here already. A very simple but very good quality design, and it simply sits over the top of the stove. I'll just pop it on here now to give you a quick idea about what's involved. So there's the convection jacket, which is now sitting over the stove. So the colder air is now going to pass down at the bottom of the stove, travel up the side, and then through the 4 optional outlets, the warm air can be redirected to either a chimney breast or another room or to an upstairs room. And the convection jacket shrouds all the way around the stove, so you're maximising the amount of heat that you're going to capture and reclaim from the stove itself. Capturing the heat is one part of the equation. The second part, as I mentioned earlier, is to suck that warm air away using a fan system. Now, this is a 125 mil. There is a larger fan, which is 150 mil, but this one here is 125 mil. And it's a very simple construction. During installation, the intake for the fan would be this particular model here. It's a rotating fan. You can see the blades turning inside. The warm air is sucked away from the stove. So in an install scenario, this particular spigot will be connected onto a warm air ducting, simply sucking the warm air away from the stove, in through the fan, and then redirected out via other tubes, if you wish, to other rooms. You don't have to use the fan, but we'd always recommend where possible to use a fan. It's going to give you a slightly higher yield and obviously give you a little bit more control over the warm air. This is capable of working with about temperatures of approximately 200 degrees C, so plenty of warm air can be catered with a fan like this. And this particular unit will move around about 340, 350 cubic meters of air an hour. So anybody doing calculations on the warm air requirement can put those numbers into the equation. That's it. There will be more videos and more detailed videos later on the website. There are more detailed schematic drawings on this and other BEF home products which can be downloaded directly from our website, shawwoodheat.ie, and more detailed drawings on the dimensions, the sizes, and other stoves within the range. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.